on April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but...
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said...
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You're embarrassed that you made that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer of the court.
It doesn't sound like something that I would say.
You know what I'm embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
On your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Conservative Mandate, the channel where we stand together to defend America's core values, expose leftist hypocrisy, and fight for justice and freedom. Today, we're diving into a fiery Senate hearing that reveals just how far the radical left will go to push their activist agenda through the courts. This is about corruption, double standards, and the abuse of power. And it's time we called it out for what it is. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to Conservative Mandate, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the disgraceful way our judicial system is being weaponized. Stick around until the end, because I'm exposing the left's dirty tricks to undermine our Constitution and how you can fight back. Let's get into it. At the center of this hearing was a debate on nationwide injunctions, those sweeping rulings from activist judges that affect every American, even though they come from just one federal court. These injunctions have become the left's favorite weapon to block conservative policies, and it's clear that both parties have abused them. But the real question is, why are judges acting like politicians in robes instead of impartial defenders of the law? Senator Kennedy didn't hold back, calling out one professor for flip-flopping on nationwide injunctions based on his political preferences. When Obama or Biden are in office, this professor thinks these injunctions are outrageous abuses of power. But when Trump is president, they're suddenly as sweet as pumpkin pie. This kind of hypocrisy is exactly why Americans are losing faith in the justice system. Judges and professors who play political games have no business pretending to be neutral arbiters of the law. And let's talk about...
Would any of you advise a client to defy a federal court order?
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer, yes.
In some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse. No.
I've read your stuff and I've read your writings. I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say. because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that. Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is.
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats are forum shopping, aren't they?
Certainly.
Professor, do you disagree with that?
I think both sides are abusing them. I agree.
Okay. Both sides.
Yeah.
There are no clean hands here. Now, your suggestion is that when a federal judge issues a nationwide injunction, there should be an automatic stay and an expedited right of appeal. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you disagree with that?
I haven't given enough thought to have a position on it, Senator.
I suspect, Professor, your answer will be it depends on who's president.
No, Senator.
Let me ask you about this. What if we had a rule? I was reading an article the other day. I'm not suggesting it. I just want your opinions. That said, if a president, any president, issues an executive order, let's say, that clearly violates settled Supreme Court precedent, that a federal judge can't issue a nationwide injunction. For example, if a president issued an order that said no one in America has right to counsel any longer, including but not limited to, in a felony case, having the government pay for your lawyer if you can't afford it. That clearly violates settled Gideon v. Wainwright. In that case, a judge has no authority or does have authority to issue a nationwide injunction. But in a case where the law is unclear, a judge should refrain from that. Now, obviously, we'd have to trust our judges, but we're supposed to be able to trust them anyway. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with that, Senator, because I think universal injunctions transgress the limitations under Article 3, even if the underlying merits are clear.
I happen to agree with you. I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but.
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You're embarrassed that you made that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer of the
It doesn't sound
court.
like something that
You know
I would
what I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in the classroom,
on
sir.
Your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful of federal judges and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court, gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Durbin.
So I'm going to give the panel members an opportunity to...
And let's talk about forum shopping, the shady practice where both sides, Republicans and Democrats, pick judges they know will rule in their favor. It's a bipartisan problem, but the left has perfected it. They find activist judges who are more interested in pushing their agenda than upholding the Constitution. This is corruption at its core, patriots, and it's why we need real reform. Senator Kennedy proposed a bold solution: automatic stays and expedited appeals for nationwide injunctions. This would stop activist judges from overstepping their authority and allow higher courts to weigh in before these rulings take effect. It's common sense, but the left hates it because it takes away their ability to bypass the legislative process and force their agenda on the American people. But it gets worse. One professor at the hearing was forced to answer for calling Supreme Court justices evil during a broadcast. Can you believe this? An officer of the court, someone who teaches our future lawyers, calling members of the Supreme Court evil because they don't agree with his politics. When confronted, the professor tried to deny it, but the senator had the receipts. This kind of rhetoric is poisoning our institutions and teaching the next generation to disrespect the rule of law. Patriots, this is bigger than just one hearing. This is about the radical left's relentless assault on our Constitution. They use activist judges, media allies, and even professors to push their agenda and silence conservatives. They want to rewrite the rules and destroy the foundations of our republic. But we're not going to let them. Here's what you can do. Share this video with every freedom-loving American you know. Post it on Facebook, Twitter, and wherever patriots gather. Subscribe to Conservative Mandate and join the fight to expose the left's corruption. Together, we will hold the line and restore integrity to our justice system. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.